Hey, everybody, it's Winter with the Shift Spotlight. And today we are here with John McLaughlin. He's the owner of Lockers Unlimited and can be found at lockers-unlimited.com. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you, Winter. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a fan of the show. I've learned a lot from you and Ken, so it's a big night for me to be on your show.
So wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
And that's great. That makes me just made my day today. So I appreciate that. All right, well, let's start with a little bit of fun. What is one interesting fact about you that people may not know?
It's something you wouldn't know because I don't talk about it, but when I started this business, it was with my father, and it was really my first job out of college. And we ran it together for a few years. We ran into some real roadblocks. We made some major mistakes. We redid it. So since 1992, every paycheck that I've ever gotten, I've signed both sides of it.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
So
unusual.
you are the ultimate example of the owner that learned on the job.
I did. I didn't want to do it, to be honest with you. My dad worked for a company for 25 years, started out in the factory, worked his way up to national sales manager, and then he got in his 50s and they let him and all his buddies go, the guys that had built the company.
Right.
And he said, I'll never put myself in that position. I will work for myself from this day forward. Started his own company in the dining room, and we had nothing. We had a filing cabinet and a phone. And I'm getting out of my undergraduate school, and he said, why don't you come work for me? And I said, oh, no, this is crazy. I'm not going to go work in the dining room with no assets. I'm going to waste a lot of time on this company. And you know what the failure rate of small businesses are? This would be a crazy thing for me to do.
Right.
But at the same time, I knew I could learn from him. So I said, here's what I'll do. I'll give you 2 years to learn what I can from you, and then I'm going to go someplace safe. And he let me get away with saying that, even though he'd been through what he'd been through.
Right.
And of course, you learn that the safest place you can be is putting your fate in your own hands.
That's right. Right.
And I was lucky enough to learn that early, where I didn't have to go through the 25 years of working for somebody else to get there. I got there because he gave me the opportunity. So I was extremely lucky. I'd have never done it on my own. But it's been an obvious life-changing event.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that story. I love the father-son aspect. All of it is great. So why don't you tell our listeners at a high level what it is you do?
Okay. We started out as really, my dad was a rep for a company that makes metal lockers, shelving, pallet rack. And for years, we tried to sell the whole product line. And what we learned over time was where people need the sales specialty was in the locker edge of it. So we sell basically metal lockers, same metal box they've made for over 100 years. But there's ways to bring value to that sale.
Improved in any way? You're telling me the metal box is the same that it was in high school?
Pretty much. I mean, they've made a few improvements, but I can actually hold a side up to a locker that was made in 1970, and the holes are the same as they are made today. So there hasn't been a lot of innovation.
I'm just curious.
Pardon?
What are the function of the holes in the same spot?
Oh, to assemble it. The lockers come in flat pieces. You have to put 100 nuts and bolts in them like you did 100 years ago. So it's a thing that nobody wants to do. And so there's value there for us to provide that service, because most people would say this is going to take too long, So that's one of the reasons why we found value in there, and we found a way to deliver it. And you couldn't do that with other product lines. So that's how we became, after trials and tribulation, Lockers Unlimited.
So then you're telling me AI has not perfected a way to put together lockers yet?
Not yet. And I keep waiting. And you would think there would be a much better way to build that box. And they've tried and tried and tried, but I mean, seriously, a metal locker has about 80 nuts and bolts. And there's no fast way to put them in. You put them in by hand and you tighten them with a drill. And it doesn't matter how fast you are, it takes a long time. Wow. So nobody wants to do it. But, that's where you want to be, right? This is the place you want to be, is to provide a service.
You've got a problem to solve. So
yep, 100%.
Well,
and
we are definitely going to talk about some of the mistakes you've made along the way. And it sounds like you and your dad kind of did several of those. But before we dive into the mistake side of it, let's talk about something that you did right and that you're proud of.
Okay, that's a great question. The one thing I did right that I maybe didn't know I was doing right at the time, anybody that I brought in to work for me, be it an employee or even a contractor, I treated them a little better than they thought they deserved. I paid them a little more than I think they thought they were worth. And I did small favors along the way to build the relationship. And if I did that just because that's how I am as a person. But what I learned from that is you can reduce turnover and you can
Right.
build loyalty.
Yeah.
And how many times have I seen somebody who trained somebody, brought them in, trained them how to run their business, and then all of a sudden they leave, they take some customers with them. You see it all the time.
Okay.
And it's a blow to the heart. You've lost probably your best customer or employee. Now you've lost customers, and it's all because they didn't think they were getting what they deserve.
Right.
So by paying just a little bit more, it doesn't have to be a lot more, or by taking a special interest in this person and making them feel like a valid part of the organization,
Mm-hmm.
it pays huge dividends.
Right.
Now I was fortunate to learn that and not make that mistake.
Right. Right. That's a great
You know,
one. How
yeah.
many employees do you have?
I think we have 8 right now. It's not a lot of people,
Mhm.
but we've been the number one dealer in our space for the last 2 years for the company we mostly rep. And our sales, when you started from the kitchen table, we're doing sales of around $5 million a year, which is pretty good for a company that size.
Yeah.
That's about where I want to leave it. I don't really want to get any bigger. I'm real happy with that.
Right.
And like I say, everybody who's there does well. Everybody's treated well. So we don't need a lot of people. We just need good people.
Do you have anybody that manages others, like a leadership team of some sort, or do you handle all of that directly?
No, I work 3 days a week and I don't even work that hard while I'm there. So
There you
I've
go.
been, there's another lesson that was really hard for me to delegate. It took me decades to be honest with you. When you've built something with your own bare hands and you've got to turn it over. It's like a kid, you send them off to college and you don't know what they're going to do. Now you can't watch them anymore. And it took me a long time to get there, but I've got people that basically make all the decisions for me. If they need me, I'm there. But I retired and then came back and I said, okay, I'll work 3 days a week, but it's not going to be like it was,
Right.
and
Nice.
that has been extremely rewarding because now you're investing in other people and you're seeing their growth. You're giving
Right.
them free reign. And to me, that's more rewarding than anything I've done, honestly.
So you are the CEO that has achieved the ultimate dream, which is you're kind of out of the day-to-day operations
Yep.
and you're having other boots on the ground kind of work in the business and you can just work on the business. So what strategies did you use to build a strong and effective team that support the day-to-day operations without your involvement in every facet of it?
I really, at the end of the day, it boils down to trust.
Mhm.
You've got to find the people that can do what you want them to do. You don't want to put anybody out of their area of specialty, and you want to give them the best training that you can. And I think the best thing you can do is set the culture for this organization and lead by example. And when I do come in and work 3 days a week or whatever it is, I'm in the back sweeping with the guys that are building lockers, and I'm taking out the trash. And they see the owner who doesn't have to be here pitching in, and it
Right.
develops a mindset of a culture of, hey, we're all in this together. Nobody's any better than anybody else. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to solve the customer's problem. We're trying to make the customer happy. And
Right.
that's our focus. And that's just in building culture. And so that's finding the right people, putting them in place and letting them make some mistakes.
Yeah.
Don't lord over them and say, hey, you're doing this wrong. I've let them go right down the road that I knew was going to end poorly, but they had to go there. I mean, that's how you learn. And
Let
it's
the
okay.
birdies fly.
Absolutely. And you've got to cut the straps and say, well, he's either going to learn from this or he's not, but I'm going to let him do it. And it's hard to do that. Believe me, it was probably the hardest thing of the whole business thing was the delegation part. I'm a terrible delegator. Um,
Most owners are.
when it's your thing that you built and you're just ready to turn it over, oh my, it's
Yeah.
frightening, but when you got the right people in place, it's doable.
And
But yeah, when I
obviously,
go to work now, I want to be there. It's not like, I used to be where I felt like I had to be there. So yeah, this is about as good as it gets, I think, for me. Um,
and so obviously you had some sort of like training or programs in place to help build up your employees, your leadership teams. What did those look like?
Well, it's mostly learning on the job. When you want to teach somebody, I think the best way to teach what you want them to do is do it yourself and set the example.
Hmm.
Um, here's how the customers are treated. Here, when you answer the phone, you're excited to be there.
Yeah.
If you're having a bad day, the customer will never know that. I've sent people home who were coming across to the customer, I thought gruffly, and told them, you can't talk to my customers. I'm not going to let you do it. Uh,
Right.
that's the cardinal rule here. I'll put up with a lot, but not that. Everything we do is focused on the customer experience. So it's not like a formal training manual. It's more, here's how I do it. Now you can have your own spin on it, but the principles stay in place. Whereas we're going to deliver the highest value to the customer. When they call, we're excited that they call. Now we're
Right.
selling metal lockers. There's nothing sexy about it, but if you're calling me as a customer, I'm glad you called, and I'm going to make sure you know that. You're going
Right.
to hear that in my tone of my voice,
Right.
uh, and how quickly I respond to what it is you asked me to do.
Right.
You're top priority. So it's something that I think you learn best by seeing, rather than I just tell you, here's how we do it. No, watch me and I'll show you how we do it. Because I learned it from a master. My dad was a great, great salesman. So I got to see him in action. Now they got to see me in action. Now the guy that I've trained, the new guys come in and watch him in action. So it's the same, process, but it's
Yeah.
mostly learned by example.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, I mean, you scaled your business. I mean, 5 million, that's a lot of revenue. Only 9% of businesses, that's 1 out of 20 businesses, ever exceed or hit 1 million in revenue. So,
Yeah.
that's a huge accomplishment. 91% of businesses can't do that. So, as you've scaled your business to that amount, what challenges have taken you by surprise and how have you handled them?
Oh, great question again. Well, let me say this. I never ever focused on sales. It meant nothing to me.
Mhm.
We study gross profit. We're a sales agency. So we look at what we sold it for, what it cost us, and we look at the gross profit every month. And that's what people get paid for. Sales are irrelevant. I'm looking at profit margin. That's
Mhm.
that's the magic number to me. I don't care if we do 1 million, 10 million. I want this profit margin to be comfortable. And that's really since day one. My dad told me that we focus on profit. Sales can be misleading.
Yeah.
I could take this company to 10 million pretty easy. We're in construction. I just got to be the low bidder. But I'm going to
Yeah.
have $5 million worth of really cheap business that's going to destroy my resources and then take out the good customers that I have. So caveat on sales is shouldn't be your main focus, in my opinion. It should be how much money am I making on each sale? Because that'll lead you to where your profitability is.
Right.
Um, so you were asking some of the things we did right,
And what are the challenges as you've scaled to
the
that
challenges.
$5 million mark?
It's people, I think, more than anything. We had a lot of breaks along the way. I think anybody that tells you, "Oh, I did this because I'm really great at what I did," maybe, but I can promise you there were some hurdles and challenges. I mean, I can name more than one time when I called in a business broker and said, "I'm ready to sell this company. There's no future here. We're going to fail." I mean, I couldn't see any future, and I luckily surrounded myself with people that convinced me that I could gut it out and survive it, and I did. And it wasn't because I'm a great tough guy. It's because I had people advise me it's not as bad as you're making it. So an early challenge is we didn't put any priority on bookkeeping when we
Mm,
first started. We
yeah.
we were busy with the sales and we're trying to get customers, and we were like, let's just worry about bookkeeping later. And it came back to haunt us because we made up all the numbers on one of our tax returns, and of course we were audited. So when the
Yeah.
numbers don't add up to what you put in the bank, they
Yep.
got a lot of questions. And
Yep.
all I could tell them was, look, we screwed up, and please, we'll take this company out, and we'll dissolve this company, and we're going to start over, and we'll do it right.
Yeah.
And from that day forward, get the accounting right. Every dollar is accounted for because I saw the downside of that.
Right.
Um,
Nobody
so
likes it when the IRS comes knocking at their door.
well, especially if you're standing there with no defense and saying, look, I hate to tell you this, but the reason the numbers don't add up is because we made them all up. That's a bad place to be. Um, the other thing I think that's been good, everybody, right down to the first guy we hire who's building lockers, he is rewarded on the profitability of the company. If we have a good month, he feels it in his paycheck, so that he knows the reason he's there is to make the company money.
Yep.
Right? It's not so much his paycheck. It's not so much that, but he will know too when there's a customer that has a problem, then he sees it in the field. Treating this customer right is going to make his check bigger.
Yep.
And you need to have I mean, all the way down the line, I think everyone should be rewarded for what you want them to do, or why would they do it.
Right.
So that's been very successful.
Okay. And so do you have any industry specific challenges or something that's specifically impacting your industry or company, either positively or negatively, that, is relevant to talk about?
Absolutely. When I started this in the 1990s, early 1990s, I thought, well, this is a great business to be in, because how could you ever import a metal box from China across the seas? It would cost too much. Nobody will ever do it. And 15 years later, it's all imported. I mean, even the companies that say they're made in America, not much of it is made in America anymore.
Right.
Which means that anybody can jump into my space as a manufacturer, because they're really not a manufacturer. They're just importing parts now.
Mhm.
So you don't need the big heavy machines. You don't need the big warehouse space. Everybody can get in on the ground floor of importing and become a threat that pops up overnight. And I've seen
Right.
it time and time and time again. Where they make their mistake typically is they want to be the cheapest guy,
Yeah.
and they think we'll take the market over by being the lowest price, which
Right.
is not a good strategy in construction at all. I mean, you'll be the lowest price and you'll get a lot of cheap business, but you won't make enough money to survive.
Right.
So importing is huge. I've been lucky that I haven't had anybody leave my company and compete with me, because I think that would be probably the greatest hurdle of all.
Yep.
But maintaining a customer base, we're the middleman in a industry that has a lot of problems. Things ship late, things ship damaged, things don't get where they're supposed to go, things are missing. We're problem solving all day long. I mean, it's basically what we're doing,
Yeah.
which makes you tired at the end of the day. And not a lot of people want to do it, but that's the reason I think that you can make money doing it, is because it's not a cushy job at all,
Right.
Um, and you're only one big problem away from losing a good customer. And that's true, I think, in any business, or at least
Yeah.
if you don't handle it well. So,
Yeah. So curious, where do you see yourself investing resources for the next year? I know you don't want to grow much bigger, but I'm sure you still have to stay on top of things.
oh, absolutely. I mean, I've got guys there that want to go, because we went from 3 million to 5 million pretty quick, and we did it again. And now they want to go to 10 million. And I'm like, man, I mean, that is a leap there. Not saying we can't do it. I just don't know that we're set up to do it. We'd be a whole different company, I think, at that point. And it's changed so much already that I'm not sure I could see it happening, but it could happen in somebody else's hands. I got it where I wanted it to be, and then it grew from there. So me personally, I'll be getting out of the way probably within a year or two and letting them run it. I might even, sell it and just get out of it completely. But where it goes from here is largely not going to be decided by me.
Yeah.
I feel like I've done what I came to do, and I couldn't be happier with where it is, but I don't have the fire to go out and go to 10 million. Doesn't interest me.
Yep. That's good. Well, hey, you got to meet people where they're at, right? So
Exactly. Yeah, I'm happy here. This is a good spot. Better
yeah.
than I ever thought it could be. So, but I don't want to hold the people back either that think that visualize this happening. I mean, if they're on board with it, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And so, what is one book or resource that you would recommend to another CEO?
Oh, there's so many. A good resource is your podcast, for one thing. I stay informed with business podcasts like yours. I listen to them driving. I listen to them, before I go to bed at night, and I would stay on top of. I think the podcasting is much more current than some books. Although I've read some great business books. The books I like are all about selling and the subliminal side of selling.
Yeah, me
Why
too.
does
Love
oh
that stuff.
gosh, love that stuff. Why does the customer buy? Why does he make that buying decision? Because 90% of it is in the back of his mind. He can't tell you why.
Yeah.
It's little signals that you send out. You're in real estate, and I'm sure there's the customer that you're sure is going to buy from you, 100% sure you've got this deal inked. He
Yep.
doesn't buy from you. And then the wild card that comes in out of nowhere that looks like really loosey goosey, that's the one that comes in. And I spent years and decades trying to quantify this, what made him buy, what made him not buy. It's impossible, but it's fun to try. So I like the neuromarketing aspect
Yeah,
of,
I
if
do
I'm going
too.
to read a book, it's going to be about neuromarketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't you talk to us about Lifeline to a Soul? What is that about? I know it's completely off topic, but we're about done here, so let's talk about it.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that very much, Winter. So I get to the point where I got in my business, and if you work for yourself, if you're not careful, you can fall behind in the ways of new technology. And I did that in the late 90s. I didn't know what an Excel spreadsheet was. I didn't know how to send an attachment to an email. I was falling further and further behind because I was a small company and it was just me in there. There was nobody to keep me current. And I've realized I'm losing it here. So I went back to school and I got an MBA. It took me 5 years going at night. And
Wow.
I learned so much though, and it was great. It got me up to speed. I was current again, and it was the best time and money I ever spent investing in myself. It got me to the next level, got the business to the next level. But through the process, somebody told me, "Did you know with this you can teach business courses at a community college?" I said,
Mhm.
"Oh, that'd be great. That's what I'm going to do." And I tried to get into teaching at a community college. Nobody would hire the 50-year-old guy with no experience. They wouldn't even interview me. And one day I saw this ad to teach in a minimum security prison. And I was like, last place I want to be. But I'm 52 now and nobody's offered me a job. So I'll go interview for this prison job. And I went in there and they gave me the job and they said, I said, what do I got to work with? They said, nothing. You just create your own courses, 99 hours a week, but you do it any way you want to do it. We don't really care. Okay. So I've got to build a class up and I'm dealing with guys who've made a mistake, obviously. And some of them just had a bad night and made a really bad mistake. And a lot of them ran illegal businesses. They had business sense, but they'd never been directed in how it went.
Channeled the
So
right way, you know, that
exactly.
business is being channeled that right way.
Right. A lot of these guys think, well, I can make money fast. This is going to happen overnight. On and on and on. I met some great people. I made some really good friends. I've got guys from the prison working for me now in my business who've done extremely well. And I realize that this is a demographic that we've, as a society, have largely given up on.
Yeah.
You see a guy with a felony on his record and you're like, oh, he's trouble. He's bad. I don't want anything to do with him. But you put yourself in their place. We've all made mistakes. And should we pay the rest of our life for it? I mean, there's some people that are happy in prison. They don't want to leave, and that's fine. But there's some people that don't want to come back. And there's no better investment that I found than in educating them a little bit about business and financial literacy, because if they get out and they have a felony, they're going to be limited. But if they get out and start their own business, sky's the limit. That nobody asks about your record.
Yep.
So I did it. Job lasted 3 years, and then COVID hit, and I did every home improvement project that I was planning to do when I retired. And I still had more time, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I had told my dad's wife when I lost the job, I said, well, no more prison stories. Sorry, I'm out. And she said, why don't you write a book about it? And there I was with COVID with all this time. And I said, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I didn't ever want to teach in prison. I didn't ever plan on writing a book. But if anybody's interested in the book, if you want to go to our website, I will send you for free an autographed copy if you mention the Shift Spotlight. It's www.lifelinetoasoul.com.
Okay, so that's www.lifelinetoasoul.com. I always say that to Ken. I'm like, just say the website, lifelinetoasoul.com. We don't have to say the
Right.
www.
That's a mouthful,
But we do.
but
We still
I would
say
love to
it's
send anybody
www.
who's interested.
That's how I know we're old, is when you say www.
Yeah, exactly. It's like everybody's like, of course it's www. Right. What can you do? I mean, you're comfortable where you're at.
Yep.
What you learned. So
Yep. Well, this has truly, truly been a pleasure. Is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with that you think may help along their own CEO and owner journey?
yep. I will say that if you've started a business and you're working this out, you've got my utmost respect, because you've taken a road that's less traveled. It's a very difficult road. Take it from me. I wanted to quit numerous times because it was too much for me. It was too difficult. The failure rate's astronomical. But what I've learned is the people that make it are not the smartest people in the room. They're not the most schooled people in the room. They're not the best salespeople in the room. The people that make it are the people that refuse to quit,
Yep.
who are going to get there by any means necessary. And if you don't quit, you will get where you want to be. Take it from me. There was many times that I would have quit, and I look back and think, how different would my life be now had I quit, had I let myself quit?
Yeah.
So my number one characteristic of a successful person, especially in small business, is determination. You've got to just want it bad enough to say, if this doesn't work, I'll try something else. If this business fails for the third time, I'm going to start a fourth business until I get it right. And then those people always seem to make it.
Yep. Yeah. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I've seen
It
it a
takes a
million
lot
times.
of grit and resolve to do what
Amen.
we do. We appreciate having people like you on our show to help, the experienced as well as the ones who are trying to grow and not make some of the same mistakes that we made along the way. So we appreciated having you here today, John.
Thank you. And it's totally my pleasure, and keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Okay.